What would you do if someone you thought you trusted turned Emmanuel into a commodity, sold him for cold, hard cash? Right now, prosecutors say that's exactly what Jake and Rebecca Haro did. And just 5 minutes ago, their evidence dropped. Emmanuel, just a child, innocent and defenseless. Jake and Rebecca, the Haros, once seen as pillars of their community. Over the next hour, I'll walk you through how this all came to be and what everyone missed until it was nearly too late. Before we get into the evidence, we need to understand who Emmanuel was and who the Haros were supposed to be. Emmanuel was just a little boy. Small frame, shy smile, the kind of child who clung to his blanket a little tighter than most. Neighbors remember him riding his scooter up and down the sidewalk, stopping to wave at passing cars. Always polite, always quiet. He was the kind of child who never made trouble, and the kind of child a community rallies around. And then there were Jake and Rebecca Haro. To the outside world, they looked like solid parents. Jake held a steady job in construction, while Rebecca worked part-time at a local daycare. On Facebook, their profile was filled with smiling family photos, barbecues, birthday cakes, the classic posts about how family is everything. They weren't flashy, but they were visible, active in their church, friendly with their neighbors, even hosting block parties in the summer. But underneath the smiling photos and holiday captions, people began to whisper. Some claimed Rebecca seemed overwhelmed, that she snapped at Emmanuel in public. Others said Jake had money problems, debts piling up, late payments, quiet arguments overheard through thin walls. And then came a post, one that spread like wildfire. A former neighbor uploaded a short video, saying she was worried about the Haros little boy. In it, she claimed Emmanuel looked underfed and withdrawn. The video didn't stay small. It shot across local Facebook groups, picking up hundreds of comments. Most dismissed it, but a handful of voices, they said something didn't sit right. At first, no one could imagine what those whispers meant. But looking back now, those were the cracks in the facade. And they were about to split wide open. Then came the day everything changed. It was a quiet Thursday morning when Emmanuel vanished. One moment he was playing in the living room, cartoons flickering in the background, the next gone. By the time Jake and Rebecca dialed 911, nearly 2 hours had passed. Their voices on the call were frantic, shaky. Rebecca insisting she'd just stepped outside for a few minutes. Jake telling dispatch that doors were locked, windows sealed. Within hours, police swarmed the Haro home. Patrol cars lined the street. Officers combed through backyards. Neighbors questioned at their doorsteps. Emmanuel's photo, brown eyes, that shy half-smile, was printed on flyers before sundown. Social media lit up almost instantly. A single post on Facebook, "Please share. A little boy named Emmanuel is missing in Ukaipa," was shared thousands of times within a single night. On Twitter, the hashtag Find Emmanuel began trending. Friends, family, strangers, all resharing the same school photo of a boy in a blue t-shirt, eyes just a little too big for his face. Local news stations broke into evening programming with urgent updates. Reporters stood in front of yellow tape, describing a desperate search as helicopters circled overhead. And the community answered. Volunteers gathered at the park with flashlights, sweeping trails and creek beds late into the night. One woman told a reporter, "We don't know this family, but no child should vanish like this. We'll search until he's home." Local news stations broke into evening programming with urgent updates. Reporters stood in front of yellow tape, describing a desperate search as helicopters circled overhead. And the community answered. Volunteers gathered at the park with flashlights, sweeping trails and creek beds late into the night. One woman told a reporter, "We don't know this family, but no child should vanish like this. We'll search until he's home." Meanwhile, messages flooded into the Haros inboxes. Some offered prayers, others offered theories. A close family friend later said, "They were just devastated." You could hear it in Rebecca's voice. She kept saying over and over, "We just want our baby back." It felt, in those first hours, like the town had locked arms. Grief and fear mixed with determination. Everyone believed Emmanuel was out there somewhere, waiting to be found. But no one could imagine how twisted the truth would turn out to be. The first 48 hours in any missing child case are critical. And for Emmanuel, those hours began producing more questions than answers. Detectives started with the basics: door-to-door interviews, CCTV checks, and Emmanuel's parents' phones. Right away, odd details surfaced. A nearby gas station camera caught Rebecca walking alone in the middle of the night. She wasn't carrying groceries. She wasn't meeting anyone in plain sight. Just pacing, phone in hand, looking around nervously before disappearing down a side street. When investigators checked the Haros phone records, the story grew stranger. Jake's phone pinged miles away from where he claimed to be on the night Emmanuel vanished. And Rebecca's messages included cryptic texts: "Did you handle it?" and another that simply read, "Deal done." Then came the first real tip. A neighbor reported seeing Rebecca outside with Emmanuel at nearly 2 in the morning, just days before he disappeared. She described Emmanuel clinging tightly to her hand, wearing pajamas, looking frightened. When asked why she didn't say anything sooner, the neighbor admitted she brushed it off, thinking maybe it was just a restless child and a tired mom. Still, investigators pressed harder. They asked Jake and Rebecca for additional photos of Emmanuel to help the search. The couple hesitated. First they delayed, saying they needed time to find the right ones. Then the pictures they finally turned over looked old, months out of date. That hesitation set alarms ringing. What were they hiding? Why stall on something so basic? Meanwhile, the online world was exploding. Tweets poured in. Day 3, and still no sign of Emmanuel. Hashtag find Emmanuel, and something about this doesn't add up. Police need to dig deeper. On Facebook, a shaky live stream appeared, filmed from across the street from the Haros home. You can hear the neighbor whispering into the camera. There's cops everywhere. They're going in and out of the house. We don't know what's happening, but it's bad. What began as a community united around a missing boy was shifting. The hope and solidarity were still there, but suspicion was creeping in. The question wasn't just, where is Emmanuel? Anymore. It was also, what aren't his parents telling us? And then, just when it seemed the case might stall, prosecutors dropped a bombshell. Financial records, transfers, encrypted messages, all pointing in a direction no one wanted to believe. It started with routine banking checks. Investigators subpoenaed the Haros accounts, expecting maybe to find overdue bills, credit card debt, something small. Instead, the statements lit up like a Christmas tree. Within days of Emmanuel's disappearance, there were sudden deposits, large sums for a family barely scraping by. One transfer in particular stood out. Thousands wired directly into an account overseas, listed under an anonymous name. And then the kicker. Messages on Rebecca's phone that investigators recovered from a deleted folder. Short. Cold. One read, "Deal done." Another, "He's not ours anymore." Let that sink in for a second. These weren't the desperate words of grieving parents. They sounded transactional, detached like business. And the evidence didn't stop there. Encrypted chats tied back to Jake showed discussions of delivery times and payment release. Words chillingly similar to those found in trafficking investigations. Pause and feel this for a moment. A helpless child, innocent and dependent. And the very people sworn to protect him, his parents, were behaving like traffickers, turning their son into a commodity. The courtroom went silent as prosecutors laid this out. Reporters scribbled furiously. Social media exploded. One tweet captured the mood perfectly. "I can't breathe reading this. They sold their own child." It was no longer a mystery about whether Emmanuel had wandered off. The evidence was painting something darker. Something that suggested his disappearance was not an accident, but a calculated sale. If the Haros sold Emmanuel, the next haunting question is, who bought him? Investigators traced those overseas transfers, and what they found hinted at something much bigger than a desperate family looking for quick cash. The payments were funneled through layers of anonymous accounts, bouncing from bank to bank, until finally landing in what prosecutors called a known trafficking hub. Encrypted chats recovered from Jake's phone referenced usernames, obscure handles like BuyerX and MotherHaven77. These weren't friends or family. These were pseudonyms, the kind you see on the dark web, people hiding behind screens while trading in human lives. The motives? On paper, the Haros were drowning financially. Debts, late notices, a mortgage they were behind on. For them, the motive could have been money. But experts say that's only one piece of the puzzle. A child psychologist later explained, "What's shocking here is the emotional detachment. For most parents, no amount of money could outweigh that bond." That tells us we might be looking at more than desperation. There could be manipulation, coercion, or even a belief they'd somehow be better off without him. A trafficking investigator added, "The language in those messages is textbook. They talk about delivery times, about release of funds. This isn't improvised. This is a system." And Emmanuel was pulled right into it. As this information leaked to the public, outrage boiled over. Comments flooded every platform. One viral post read, "How do they sleep at night, knowing they sold their own child?" Reddit threads lit up, users combing through the Haros old Facebook posts, dissecting photos, captions, even background objects. Amateur sleuths began connecting dots, an unexplained vacation, a missing stretch of online activity, a deleted Instagram account. What began as whispers about a struggling family was now being reframed as something far darker. A sale, a buyer, and a child lost to people willing to pay for him. And the question was no longer just what did Jake and Rebecca do? It was who were they working with and how many others were involved. As prosecutors revealed more details, the community's grief shifted into something else. Outrage. The first candlelight vigil was held just outside Emmanuel's elementary school. Dozens of people showed up holding candles, some clutching stuffed animals, others holding signs with his face printed across them. The hashtag that had once been hashtag Bring Emmanuel Home quietly morphed into something harsher. Hashtag Justice for Emmanuel. You could feel it in the air. This wasn't just about finding him anymore. It was about demanding accountability for what had been done. Social media feeds filled with photos of the vigil, flickering candles against the dark, handwritten messages like, "You deserved better," and "We will not forget." At the same time, Emmanuel's extended family tried to speak publicly. In one interview, broadcast through a shaky, split-screen Zoom call, his aunt broke down mid-sentence, tears streaming as she whispered, "He was just a baby. Just a baby." How could they? Another relative, voice trembling, added, "We trusted them. We trusted Rebecca and Jake. And now we don't even know if we'll ever see Emmanuel again." The weight of their words silenced the room. This wasn't just a story scrolling across news feeds. This was a wound tearing through real people. A child robbed, a family fractured, a community questioning how something so horrific could grow right in their backyard. The vigils didn't stop. Night after night, people gathered, lighting candles, praying, holding each other as they whispered Emmanuel's name. Every flame was a demand for truth. Every tear a reminder that this case was more than evidence or transcripts. It was about a boy whose innocence had been stolen. When the trial finally opened, the air in the courtroom felt electric. Rows of spectators sat shoulder to shoulder, reporters clutching notepads, every eye fixed on the Haros as they entered in silence. The prosecutor wasted no time. Standing tall before the jury, he declared, "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we are not conjecturing. We are delivering bank records, text messages,
vidéosurveillance,
evidence you can see and touch." One by one, he laid it out. Screenshots of encrypted chats, wire transfers mapped across continents, even CCTV clips of Rebecca walking the streets at midnight. Each piece landed like a hammer, building a picture of parents who had not lost their child, but deliberately handed him over. The defense scrambled to counter. They claimed the money was a loan from a friend. They suggested the messages were taken out of context. But every time they tried to spin a new story, prosecutors pulled another page from their files. Bank statements, timestamps, testimony from investigators that cut their arguments to shreds. Spectators could feel the tension rise. Whispers rippled through the room as each exhibit was shown. Some jurors shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Others stared coldly at Jake and Rebecca, brows furrowed, arms crossed. And yet, even with this mountain of evidence, nothing was guaranteed. Trials are unpredictable. Juries have surprised before. The question lingering in that courtroom was the same one hanging over the community. Will this be enough to convict? And more chilling still, does the jury even know the half of what's at stake? As the trial moved forward, the evidence painted a devastating picture. But even now, one question overshadows all the rest. Where is Emmanuel? Is he safe? Or has he been lost forever in a world too dark to imagine? And if Jake and Rebecca Haro are found guilty, what penalty could ever truly fit what they've done? Can any sentence balance the scale when a child is treated as currency? This case forces us to look at more than just one family. It forces us to confront an uncomfortable truth. Trafficking doesn't just happen in far-off countries or in shadowy corners of the internet. It can unfold right in front of us, hidden behind smiles, holiday photos, and the illusion of a normal life. So I'm asking you, don't look away. Follow this case as it develops. Support organizations fighting trafficking. Donate if you can, share resources if you can't. Every voice raised is one more chance to protect a child like Emmanuel. Because when someone gives up on a child for money, our entire humanity is tested. And the only way forward is to stay vigilant and to keep questioning. This story isn't over. I'll keep tracking it as it unfolds. If new evidence drops, like prosecutors revealed just minutes ago, you'll hear it here first.